Welcome to the Stray Red Card, and today, Brett and I are gonna take on the expansion draft, and all the sadness that went on for so many teams that didn't protect players and lost them, and they then came out and announced that they were very sad to see those players go. Well, one of the big incidents, Brett, during this expansion draft was Brian Ching. Mm-hmm. He said, if I get picked in the expansion draft, I'm retiring. Screw that. And then Kinnear expressed that he was very sad that Jesse Marsh, would go ahead and call Chings Bluff and go ahead and pick him anyhow. Now, it's one thing whether or not Brian Ching was really the best pick at his age for an expansion team. The other thing is, Jesse Marsh did what he was supposed to do. He was trying to pick one of the best forwards in the league to get things going for the Impact de Montreal. And really what we're talking about here is people are out there saying that Marsh is a dick for doing that. But at the same time, Houston and Kinnear obviously didn't value Ching that much at his age at this point, and they were happy to put him on the market, right?
I don't see it like that. I see
Kinnear.
I see Kinnear looking at it as, here's a player that's basically come out and said, hey, I'm only going to be playing one more year regardless. If I get picked in the expansion draft, I'm retiring. And he's looking at that as basically a 12th protected player. Most teams probably wouldn't go out and pick a player that's on the verge of retiring, getting ready, and basically threaten, saying that if he gets picked, he's retiring, and that's basically going to be a waste of a pick.
But that's the point, though, Brett. It's a bluff, right?
Oh, it is.
Ching's saying he's only going to play for a year. Well, maybe he'll play for a year. Maybe he'll play for 2. Maybe he'll play for 3. We don't know that. That was part of Ching's statement of, don't pick me, you son of a bitches. Leave me out of this. Don't pick me. I mean, that was kind of what he was saying, right? He was saying, not only am I only going to play for a year, so it's not worth it, but if you pick me, then I'm also going to retire. So, to me, that's all just kind of whiny wine to me. I mean, what if every player who was not protected, and we can get into the pluses and minuses of this stupid expansion draft anyhow, because I don't think it's necessary at this point. But, all right, but we got it, right? So we got to deal with the fact that what if every player who didn't want to leave their team put on this same charade? The same charade. They said, well, if you pick me, I'm quitting. Or if you do, I'm only playing for a year anyhow. And, it was all a bunch of BS. And I mean, maybe he is going to retire now because he's going to be bitter about it. But you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, and, I see, in all honesty, what I see this as, I'm sure Marsh would really love it if Ching would come and play. However, I honestly see this as basically trade bait. I think Marsh is going to go back to Houston and say, hey, if you want Ching back, maybe we'll trade for a first-round pick or maybe some allocation or even some current players.
No way Kinnear does that. No way at this point. He still has Costly, who's really kind of an untapped talent.
Well,
I know he didn't produce much.
Hasn't quite panned out for Houston yet.
No, I know, but a player like that with his talents, I mean, you would think he would find his way. You never know in the MLS, but
I would think if you're comparing a loss of Ching, the person you'd want to refer to is Will Bruin. I think Will Bruin could step up once he gets healthy and step up and do as good of a job.
That's one of the reasons they didn't need Ching anymore.
Well, I still don't think they would look at that as they don't need Ching anymore.
Then why didn't
Ching as a threat?
Then why didn't they protect him?
Because they're playing along with the I'm going to retire if I get picked. In all honesty, I suspect that they just think that Marsh wouldn't have picked him.
Then don't F around.
Oh, I don't disagree with that.
I mean, that's the point, right?
I would have protected him.
They were clowning around. They were playing the charade on the side, and they were just thinking all of that crap that they let everybody know about. They certainly let the Impact know. They certainly and we can get into the name Impact later because that's kind of annoying. But, they certainly let Jesse Marsch know the situation. And maybe that even, because they made such a big deal out of it, that made it even more likely that Jesse Marsch was going to call their bluff. And I'm glad he did, because listen, as long as we're going to play by this stupid MLS expansion draft, these stupid rules, then how about Brian Ching curls up a little ball and becomes really quiet and goes and hides away somewhere. And then maybe it's not as noticeable. I don't know. That's one strategy. The other strategy is to go out and tell everybody in the world that I'm only playing for one more year, and if somebody else picks me, if the Impact pick me, I'm gone. I'm quitting. Mm-hmm. This is like in Cincinnati, the quarterback there, the ginger quarterback. Mm-hmm. Remember him? He said, I'm not playing for the Bengals anymore. And they said, screw you. Yes, you are. You signed a contract. In this case, this is the way the rules work. And I think Brian Ching should honor it, and I think he should play for the Impact next year.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I just think that everybody who's bitching and complaining about it just need to get over it. Jesse Marsch and the Impact did absolutely nothing wrong here.
Nope.
They selected a player that was on the unprotected list.
Yep.
And if we're going to be, like you said, if we're going to be doing the expansion draft, then that's just the way it is. If you don't want to lose him, you protect him. I mean, hell, DC United protected Charlie Davies. There's no guarantee that he's even coming back.
Yeah.
But they protected his rights. Chicago did with Chris Rolfe when he was leaving to over to the Scandinavian leagues.
It was really weird. I guess you have to even protect your designated players. And I thought that was really, to me, inherently that seems like a stupid rule. If you're your designated players, they should be automatically protected. And then you should just have to protect the others. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because he had Omar Bravo on there too, right? He was available. He's a designated player.
And you got to look at it from the Impact's point of view, and then I think this comes into a lot of this takes into a lot to account of a lot of the players that were mentioned in the draft that weren't picked, like Freddie Adu. You mentioned Bravo, Mendoza. These are players that are going to bring with them heavy price tags.
Yeah.
Does the Impact really want to take a chance paying these salaries, not knowing if they're really going to mesh with the team?
Yeah.
If I were picking players from an expansion draft, I would go for either seasoned vets, or I would go for promising talents that are young and that have some experience within the league.
And Joey Saputo, this is the guy who basically told Garber, and I'm not sure if this was a Loney article, an Archer article I read recently, but we all knew about it as well. Joey Saputo basically told Garber, hey, I don't really even need this expansion draft. We could go live today with the players we have now. Which is kind of the funny thing, because they barely kept a single player. You look at it.
Right now, yes.
They've got
3.
Jubin Provic, Kamara stayed, Evan Bush. There are just not many guys that, they kept. Again,
as of right now, they can always re-sign them later on. But yeah, as of right now, they've only kept like 3.
Yeah. So don't give me that crap, Mr. Saputo, the guy who named the stadium after himself. I don't know if there are any other owners who actually named the stadium after themselves. So that's kind of interesting. But maybe it's actually named after his father. I don't know.
Most owners are selling the names of the stadium rights so that they can earn some money.
Oh, well, and I'm sure that'll happen down the road. There's no doubt about it. But you mentioned, hey, there were other players out there, and let's just go down the list of the folks that they actually picked. And just, for a second here, there's some real questionable picks. All right. We'll start with Valentin. He's a fine player. He's very promising from Chivas USA. So I'm not going to say that's a bad pick, but we really don't know yet. right? I mean, we don't know. He's a young player.
And I read that he's actually graduated from the Generation Adidas contract. So it's possible that the reason that he didn't get protected, per se, is that his contract would either go up or that the fact that Chivas USA would simply have to start paying the salary. At which point, I think this was an absolute steal for the Impact.
Yeah.
You have a promising young defender who did pretty well for himself. And we'll see what happens with him as he develops.
And as bad as Chivas USA is, I'm surprised they could find 8 players. 11, whatever number, was it 8?
11.
11. I'm surprised they found 11. And if I were them, I would have protected any promising youth players coming up.
It's not purely 11. They have to protect a certain number of foreign players as well, which seems strange to me, but whatever.
Yeah, very, very odd the way it all works. But Justin Mapp, they picked Justin Mapp. Okay, fine.
Well,
but to me, come on, Justin Mapp? I mean, for God's sake, Philadelphia are just happy to get rid of his almost $200,000 compensation. I mean, they don't want this guy on their books to begin. He's not worth $200,000 a year.
So is Chicago at that point.
Yeah.
It's. I see this as Jesse Marsch basically having connections and knowing the player, and in fact, you can say that about a couple of players, to be frank. But he knows Mapp. He's known him. He's played with him a couple of years. He's played against him, and I think he just thought this is a seasoned vet who can come in, even though he is unbelievably inconsistent. Sorry, but.
He hasn't had a good year.
I don't think he's worth the salary either.
He hasn't a good year. Hasn't had a decent year since probably 2007, 2008. Then you've got Bobby Burling. That's fine. I mean, he's a solid guy. He, reliable, whatever. Then Jeb Brovsky. What? Jeb Brovsky? Again, another young kid. He's only 22 years old. It's just again, when you're talking about a player of that age who has this little experience, you really don't know what you're getting yet. Mm-hmm. And then Colin Warner? I mean, Colin Warner, of all the players on Real Salt Lake, this is the guy you go after? Huge. Complete. I'm not even sure what's going on there. Then Josh Gardner, again, huge question mark. He's 29 years old, but what has Gardner done in this league? Really? What? What has he done? Has he been impressive ever? Now, then you get into Niasi. That's a decent pick. It's fast. I think that's a good one. They got rid of Riley so they could have Braun. I think Braun's a great pick.
Ryan.
Great pick. I think Braun will be a good player. And they also got Mann for that. Yeah. Okay. That's, he's a fine player.
Again, a young, promising player.
Sure. And then Seth Sinovich. Again, another point where the Kansas City announced they were very saddened to lose Seth Sinovich. Well, then protect him. If you don't want to lose him, protect him. You're telling me that he wasn't one of the 11 guys you wanted to protect, and we can get into specific player by player who they protected and who they didn't, but that's really ridiculous to me. If you love this kid that much, a really, kind of hometown kid, then protect him. But again, maybe they didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. And then Tyson Wall, again, another solid player. I'm not going to complain about that.
It's not even an expansion draft. That was just a trade for.
But yeah, exactly.
They traded for allocation.
Right.
Of the 10 players that they signed or they picked from the expansion draft, and then minus the obviously getting rid of James Riley, and you're bringing in the other 2 players, so you have 11 players altogether. 7 of those 11 players are under 24. So what this tells me is that Marsch wasn't looking at the expansion draft to form a team. He was looking to build a future, per se.
Yeah.
Grab some really promising young players and really develop them into the team.
But that's
as the years progress.
That's like rolling the dice, though.
It is. It is, depending on who else you bring in.
Totally rolling the dice, because when you're talking about players that have as few minutes as a lot of these guys do, or as few unproven minutes as some of these guys have, they've gotten some playing time, but they haven't, really stood out yet. You're really risking it when there were players out there that were available.